Hello my friends, it's Amy Esther here with another video to share with you my story on how one pair of socks completely changed my life. Now, if you have been here before and you kind of know my story, you might know why these socks have changed my life. But if you have not, I'm Amy Esther and I live with several chronic illnesses. I went through a very long time of trying to figure out what was going on with my body, and socks was the biggest answer for me. It's just the craziest thing when I look back. So let's go back to the beginning. So I started to get really sick, and I have my whole chronic illness story. I will link it in the description below if you want to see it, the whole thing. It's a long one, but I'm just going to recap right now. So basically, my husband and I got married. About a week later, I started to get sick, and I just got worse and worse. Like every month, it just got a little bit worse. And by a year after everything started, I could not get out of bed. I was crawling to the bathroom, and I was just really struggling. So clearly during this time, I went to doctor after doctor after doctor trying to figure out what was wrong with me. I had symptoms all over my body. I had stomach issues, I had memory issues, I had migraines, I had muscle aches and pains, I had the worst fatigue you could ever imagine. Those of you who have not experienced chronic fatigue don't understand, but those of you who have know when you have chronic fatigue, it's just debilitating. It is just so hard. I had just this awful fatigue. I had issues with my menstrual cycles. I just had issues all over the place. Every part of my body was out of whack. And I went to a bunch of doctors. I saw holistic doctors, more of like the naturopath doctors. I saw internists, OBGYNs, GI doctors, neurologists, endocrinologists. Like seriously, there's a doctor title. I probably saw them at some point during this, probably about 2 years of me going to different doctors. And I got to the point where I had to quit my job. I just couldn't do it anymore. I was just so sick. And every doctor I went to told me nothing was wrong with me. I would get tested for all the things. I'd get blood tests, like crazy amounts of blood tests. So much so that a lot of my doctors would make jokes like, I think you're anemic because you've had so much blood work. I don't even think I needed a test. I'm sure you're anemic because you've had so much blood work. You had to have lost so much blood there. I had CT scans, MRIs, I had stomach scopes, colonoscopies. I had all the things, all the tests you can think of, spent tons and tons of money, and came to the conclusion at the end of these 2 years, I was diagnosed with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. I was diagnosed with endometriosis, and those were after a surgery. I was diagnosed with those. And then I was diagnosed with SIBO, a small intestine bacterial overgrowth, and fibromyalgia. So that was kind of after I'd gone through so many doctors for 2 years. That's what I came to. And the fibromyalgia diagnosis was basically, I do have fibromyalgia and I still suffer from it. But my doctor basically said, we tried all the stuff. We searched for everything, couldn't figure out what was wrong. So we'll just blame all your other symptoms on fibromyalgia, which was not the cause of all my other symptoms. Fun to find out later. But that's basically the story. I had been to all these doctors and was told, sorry, there's nothing we can do for you. You are just going to have to live like this. And I just got given up on. Every doctor just gave up on me one by one. And I knew there was something else going on. There was just in my heart, I knew we hadn't figured it out. After about 2 years of looking for things, we gave up. I just said, okay, fine. You win, doctors. I'm going to give up. And I am not going back to doctors anymore. You guys aren't helpful. I've tried all the medications you've thrown at me, all the diets, all the supplements. Nothing helped. So I give up. And I tried to treat things on my own. And I did okay. I wasn't great. I had to quit my job. I definitely couldn't work anymore. I just was kind of just accepted that I'm just going to be sick and miserable the rest of my life. And I was kind of miserable, and I was very depressed because I felt like I was crazy. I felt like no one believed me, no one understood me. And I ended up moving on, saying, okay, fine, if nothing's wrong with me, I'm going to start my family, because if I'm going to be laying around all day, every day, I would rather do it with a baby in my arms, have some kind of purpose, because I couldn't do anything. I couldn't work. But I thought, you know what, I can hold on to a baby. I could lay down while a toddler ran around me. I could do that. So, and I just felt like God was asking me to be a mother at that time, which I'm religious. If you're not religious, then take that for what you will. But I also felt like I was being called to be a mother. So I was like, okay, fine. I will move on. I will become a mother. And then, of course, we went through the infertility and miscarriages and all of that. But finally got pregnant, stayed pregnant. And when I was 6 months pregnant with my daughter, went on probably the only vacation we went on our entire marriage. Like, I don't think, even to this day, we've never really been on a vacation. We've actually never been on a vacation that someone else hasn't taken us on, like a family member hasn't taken us on. But it was basically our only vacation we'd ever gone on. And my husband's aunt and uncle invited us to come to Chicago. And we went out there with them. They knew that I was suffering from a bunch of chronic symptoms and I was really sick. And his aunt also had a bunch of chronic illnesses. And so we kind of connected on that level. And so they totally understood that even though we were traveling out there with them, that I could only do so much. And so we'd go out maybe once a day and then we'd come back and I would rest. And I remember one morning we were getting ready and she was putting on these socks. My husband's aunt was putting on these socks that were really tight. And she's like, yeah, these are my compression socks. I have this condition where my blood doesn't circulate well, so I have to eat a ton of salt. And I wear these socks and it helps me so much. And I remember thinking, I wish that was what I had, because that seems like such an easy fix, first of all, or such an easy treatment is wearing socks. I like natural things. I've tried all the drugs and they just make me feel awful. So it's natural. And I had been craving salt for the past 3 years. And I just always thought, oh, salt's bad for me. Salt's bad for me. I shouldn't eat too much salt. So I remember I was just jealous. I was like, oh, I wish that one, I knew what was wrong with me. And she'd actually gone to the Mayo Clinic and they figured out all this stuff for her. But I really thought, oh, I'm so jealous of her. But I didn't think anything else of it until I got home. And my husband comes up to me and he's like, I know we've tried a lot of treatments, Amy, but I think you should try those socks that my aunt had. And I was like, okay, I love you, so I will try it if it's something you really want me to try. But yeah, it's not going to work. Like, how many people have told us, like, oh yeah, this miracle thing helped me, and now it's going to help you too? How many people have sold me supplements that they said would cure me? How many people told me to go to this certain doctor or this certain thing, and that it would help all of the stuff going on? And it never did. And so I was like rolling my eyes like, okay, sure, I'll try it, whatever. But I don't really want to spend money on it. And so my husband was talking to his mom about this. And she's like, oh, I have compression socks for running. Why don't you just try those and just see? And then you don't have to pay for anything. And so I was like, sure, whatever. So I'm 6 months pregnant. And I put on these running compression socks that now I laugh at because they were not even that tight. Like, not even. And I had more energy that day at 6 months pregnant. I was probably even, was I further than that? I don't know. I was around 6 or 7 months pregnant. I had more energy that day than I'd had in years. And I was like, that's gotta be a coincidence, right? Like, no way that these socks, like, just magically make me feel better. So I wore them again the next day, still felt significantly better than I had before. And I was like, okay, maybe there's something to these. So then I went a day without them and everything came back and I felt awful again. So I ended up ordering some medical ones that were tighter, and I started wearing those and I saw a huge difference. Like, it was night and day. The way I felt before I was wearing my socks and after it was a miracle. Like, it was seriously like someone gave me this pill that cured me. Now, it's funny because it did not take away all the pain. It did not take away all the problems, but it was such a big leap that I'd never had that big of an improvement from anything that I'd ever tried for my chronic illnesses, that it was amazing. So like, if a normal person's here, I was down here, my socks brought me to like here. Like, that's how it felt. Like, I still had all the issues. I still, didn't feel normal, but I felt so much better that mentally I was just on cloud nine. I just felt amazing. So during those last couple months of pregnancy, when I was just ginormous and most people are complaining that they have no energy and they're exhausted, I had more energy at that time than I did for the past 3 years before that. So what I did is I said, well, there's no way I have the same thing that she has, right? Like this salt thing, like the way she explained it was that her body doesn't process salt. Like, she didn't actually call it anything. So I was like, well, I don't have that thing. But there's something with these compression socks that's helping. There's something with my blood not circulating. So I had an Instagram account at the time. Didn't have my YouTube channel yet, but whoa, what's happening here, you guys? No one told me that. I was having crazy hair. Anyway, is it still crazy? Okay. Anyway, you guys. So I had an Instagram account where I was sharing like a little bit about my health, about the diets I was on, the things I was trying. And I posted on there a picture of the socks. And I was like, I have never felt more amazing than I started wearing these socks. And somebody sent me a message and said, girl, you have POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. Go to this website and it will share all the information. Like, I guarantee this is what you have if those have helped you and like some of the other symptoms you talk about. And I had heard about POTS, and the only thing I heard about POTS was that you faint every time you stand up, or you faint all the time. And I was like, well, I've never actually fainted, like maybe once or twice, but I always felt like I would, but I never actually did. So I was like, oh, I don't have that. I don't faint all the time, so I don't have POTS. And I started to read more about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is me. Like, for the first time ever, I read something that was like, everything was me. Like, there are times where I'd like look up a certain illness. I'd be like, oh, I possibly have lupus. And I'd be like, yeah, I have that and I have that. But like, some of these other things don't really work with me. And like, I'd hear someone's story and I was like, didn't really connect with me. But I try to convince myself that it did, so that, those kind of things. I just wanted a diagnosis. But this time it was like every article I read about someone with POTS, every story I heard, everything I heard, I was like, this is me. And I had so many blood tests. Every time they tested my blood, they couldn't get a vein. They would miss it 6 times before they'd actually get a vein. And it's because my blood wasn't circulating, little did we know. But the nurses would just be like, oh, you just have small veins, haha. And then when they would try to fill up the little vial of blood, it would take 9 years to fill it up. And sometimes they'd have to poke me again to get more blood out because they couldn't get enough out. And they'd always be like, oh, haha, your blood is really slow. Yeah, little did we know that was like the biggest clue to what was wrong with me. Anyway, after that, I called my primary care and I was like, dude, I have POTS. And he was like, oh, yeah, I've heard of that. And he's like, starts talking about it, like as if he knows all the things about it. And I'm like, why did you never test me for this? What the heck? And I tested myself. I tested my heart rate laying down and standing up. It went from like 70 to I think like 140 within like 2 minutes of standing up. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, I have this 100%. And I ended up getting prescription strength compression socks. And ever since I've worn those, I just feel amazing. And I talk a lot on this channel about how happy I am and how I just love to be joyful even though I live with chronic illness. And I did, you guys, you have to know that I went through a time of just the deepest depression. And when I realized that chronic illness isn't a problem, that I can still be happy even though I live with chronic pain, is when I found these socks. Because again, I didn't go from super sick to super healthy. I went from super sick to this much better. And I realized something. If I had never gone through that depression of feeling hopeless and feeling like we're never going to figure it out, I'm crazy, there's nothing actually wrong with me, and just feeling like completely depressed about everything, if I had not gone through that time, and instead I had found these socks on day one, you know, I started to get sick and someone immediately told me, oh, it's POTS, and we figured it out, I would not feel as happy as I did when I found the socks, because I had gone through the deepest, darkest, most painful time for such a long time. That small jump was a huge jump in my mind. And I just became so happy. I became so happy to have small things that give me small wins. I became so happy to just have one good day, even when I had 10 bad days before that. I've just learned to be grateful for the small things, to be grateful for my socks, to be grateful that I get to wear these every day. I talk to people with POTS and they're like, oh, I hate that I have to wear these compression socks. I hate that I have to drink so much water and I have to eat so much salt. And I hate that I can't go out in the heat because I have heat intolerance. And like how much they hate all of these things. And I look at it as, I am so grateful that I get to wear these socks every day. Like, they are my medicine. They make me feel so much better. I'm so grateful that I get to wear these every day because I went for so long without them and I know what it's like to not have them. So I'm so grateful for the small wins. And now, you know, maybe I'll go on a diet, and back in the day I would be like, oh, I hate that I have to be on this diet because of all this pain. I hate that I'm living this way. And now I'm just thinking, I'm so grateful that I get this small win when I eat this way. I'm so grateful that I feel this much better when I eat paleo. I'm so grateful that I feel this much better when I stay out of the heat and I stay at home. And I started taking ownership for all of these things, realizing that it's all a choice. It's a choice for me to wear these socks or not. It's a choice for me to go outside in the summer or stay inside. I get to choose all of those things. And so it just brings me so much joy that I get to do that I get to have these small wins. And then it makes the pain that is still there. And there's always going to be some pain there. There's always going to be some fatigue there. But it just makes it so much more manageable when I look at it from a gratitude stance rather than a poor me, miserable stance. So you guys, that's my story about how socks changed my life, plus a little rant about being happy with chronic illness. I actually do have a course that I created about how I've become happy with chronic illness, how I actually have changed that mindset and changed my brain into gratitude versus depression. So that is linked in the description below. You're definitely going to want to check that out. It is life changing. Your mind will be blown. Anyway, if you would like to see my next videos, make sure you subscribe to my channel and give this video a big thumbs up so that I know you liked it, YouTube knows you liked it, and I will keep creating content for you guys. I hope you have a beautiful, wonderful day.